If you liked the video, feel free to like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out. Thanks for watching. Thanks for stopping by. This video is taking a look at a Salamanders list I made for the Gladius Task Force. We have covered a lot of Firestorm Assault Force Detachment content for the Salamanders. I find the Firestorm Assault Force can be a harder detachment to start with since we need a lot of transport vehicles to really make the detachment shine. Gladius may not have the same buffs for Torrent and Melta Weapons. When we take Adrax, Agatone, or Vulkan his stand in a Space Marine list, it locks us into the Salamanders chapters. Here is our first channel Gladius Task Force list. I've named this list Vulkan's Hammer. It comes to 2,000 points. Our Warlord is Vulkan his stand. For other characters, we do have Adrax, Agatone, a Judiciar with the Honor Vehement Enhancement, a Lieutenant with the Fire Discipline Enhancement with a Volkite Pistol, Storm Shield, and Mastercrafted Power Weapon. For my battle line, I do have 2 units of 5 Intercessor Squads. Other data sheets, 2 Ballistus Dreadnoughts, a Brutalis Dreadnought with the Twin Multi-Melta and Brutalis Talon, a Redempter Dreadnought with the Macroplasma, Onslaught Gatling Cannon with some Storm Bolters, and the Icarus Rocket Pod. We do have 2 units of 6 Bladeguard veterans. One of them will join Adrax, the other will join the Judiciar. A unit of 10 Hellblasters to join up with that Lieutenant with the Fire Discipline Enhancement. A big unit of 10 Infernus Marines to join up with Vulkan his stand. Finally, a unit of 5 Infiltrators to stand on my home objective. That's my Gladius Task Force list. Vulkan's Hammer comes to 2,000 points. Let's take a quick look at the Space Marine Army rule along with some of the rules from the Gladius Task Force. Our Space Marine Army rule is Oath of Moment, where in our command phase we can select one enemy unit. Until our next command phase, any of our Adeptus Astartes unit that targets our Oath of Moment target, we can re-roll our hit roll. Any army that does not include models from Black Templars, Blood Angels, Dark Angels, Death Watcher, Space Wolves, they will also get +1 to the wound roll into that Oath of Moment target as well. The Salamanders are not in that list, so we would benefit from that +1 to the wound roll into the Oath of Moment. The Gladius Task Force Detachment rule is Combat Doctrines. At the start of your command phase, you can select one of the combat doctrines listed below. Until the start of your next command phase, that combat doctrine is active, and its effects apply to all Adeptus Astartes units from your army. You can only select each combat doctrine once per battle. Devastator Doctrine, units are eligible to shoot in a turn in which it advanced. Tactical Doctrine, units are eligible to shoot and declare a charge in which they fell back. Finally, Assault Doctrine, this unit can declare a charge in a turn in which it advanced. We have our 2 enhancements that we do have on the list. Fire Discipline is on our Lieutenant, Adeptus Astartes model only, while the Bearer is leading a unit. Ranged weapons equipped by models in that unit have the Sustain Hits 1 ability. In addition, while the Bearer's unit is under the effects of the Devastator Doctrine, you can reroll advances made for that unit. The Honor Vehement, which is on our Judiciar, add 1 to the attacks and strength of the Bearer's melee weapon. While the Bearer is under the effects of the Assault Doctrine, add 2 to the attacks and strength of the Bearer's melee weapons instead. Then we have the 6 stratagems that is in the Gladius Task Force. We'll start with 3 of the more common ones that we'll be using all throughout this list. The first one is Adaptive Strategy. For 1 CP in your command phase, you can select one of your Adeptus Astartes units. Then you can put that unit in one of the combat doctrines, even if that combat doctrine has already been selected this battle. Armor of Content for 1 CP in your opponent's shooting or the fight phase. Until the attacking unit has finished making its attacks, each time an attack that targets your unit worsen the armored penetration of that attack by 1. Squad Tactics for 1 CP. This is a pretty strong stratagem. The only downside is a lot of the time you're rolling a D6, and a D6 is a random roll, so you can't really plan on using that all the time. Your opponent's movement phase just after an enemy unit ends a normal, advance, or fallback. 1 Adeptus Astartes infantry or Adeptus Astartes mounted unit from your army that is within 9 inches of that enemy that ended that move. Your unit can make a normal move up to D6 or a normal move up to 6 inches if it is under the effects of the Tactical Doctrine. So if we're in the Tactical Doctrine, this Squad Tactics stratagem becomes much more powerful. There is a restriction. You cannot select a unit that is within engagement range of 1 or more enemy units. Then we have our more advanced stratagems. These stratagems will be more unit oriented. Our first one is Honor the Chapter for 1 CP in the fight phase. Until the end of the phase, melee weapons equipped by models in the unit have the Lance ability. If your unit is under the effect of the Assault Doctrine, add 1 to the armor penetration as well. So this is great on a melee unit, not so strong on a non-combat unit. Only in Death Does Duty End for 2 CP, this is a fight on death stratagem. The great part of the stratagem, you don't have to roll a dice, you just fight on death, but it is 2 CP, but 2 CP, you don't have to roll anything, you just fight on death. Our last stratagem is a shooting focused stratagem, Storm of Fire for 1 CP. In your shooting phase, until the end of the phase, ranged weapons equipped by models in your unit have the Ignores Cover ability, and if you're under the effects of the Devastator Doctrine, you can also improve the armor penetration of those ranged weapons as well. That's all the rules for the Gladius Task Force. Let's move on to the unit breakdown. Let's start the unit breakdown with Vulkan Hastan in the 10 Infernus Marines. Vulkan does not buff the unit more than some extra melee damage and a possible OC10 if we can get him on his Seeker of the Unfound objective. He does have 2 abilities that do buff the Infernus Squad though. We could run Vulkan with some company heroes. Either way, we want Vulkan in our list. The Forge Father ability gives any Torrent or Melta Weapons reroll wounds into 1 enemy target. Taking him in the list gives the Infernus Squad an extra OC, bringing them up to OC2. For the combat doctrines, any one of these doctrines can be useful for the Infernus Squad. Advance and Charge will be less useful. Vulkan does have a decent profile for taking out light to medium infantry in combat. The Infernus are light infantry killers with melee at best. Advance and Shoot is always good on a mid-range weapon like the Power Blasters to get in that 12-inch range. Fallback, Shoot and Charge is good for the obvious fallback from danger from melee units. It also stops the opponent from consolidating into the Infernus Squad to tie them up. For the stratagems, we do have squad tactics. Reactive moves are very powerful in 40k right now. We can use it to get out of line of sight, make charges harder, or move off or onto objectives, or even embark inside a transport. There is a lot of utility with this stratagem. The downside is, unless the Infernus unit is in the Tactical Doctrine, this will be a D6 movement. With D6, we have to try to position our unit, where even a low roll, we can move the unit into a better position. Don't always depend on a high roll of a 5 or 6, try to position yourselves where even a low roll could still get you in a good position. Storm of Fire for 1 CP, this is a situational but potent stratagem for the Infernus Squad. The only time we want to use this stratagem though is if the Infernus Squad was in the Devastator Doctrine. The Power Blaster already ignores cover, we want that extra AP 1. The Power Blaster would be D6 shots, Strength 5, AP 2, Damage 1 with ignores cover. Into the Oath of Moment target, we would have +1 to the wound roll. Throw Vulkan Hastan's Forge Father ability in there to re-roll the wounds as well. And like I always say with this unit, it's barbecue time. The Infernus Squad is actually a pretty good unit in the Gladius Task Force, even more so if we are running the Salamanders with the Gladius Task Force. Once we include Adrax or Vulkan in the list, that Space Marine army is technically a Salamanders army, locking us out from taking those other chapter characters. 10 Infernus Marines pair very well with Vulkan Hastan in the Gladius Task Force, with plenty of useful stratagems and a place in the list as an anti-infantry unit. Vulkan Hastan will boost each of these Infernus Marines up to OC2. Next is Adrax Agatone with the 6 Bladeguard. Adrax Agatone already powers up the Bladeguard by giving them reroll wounds in the fight phase. Unlike my Firestorm Assault Force list, I do not have the Lieutenant with the Adrax and Bladeguard unit, so there's no lethal hits in this unit this time. Hitting on 3s, Strength 5, AP 2, Damage 2 with reroll wounds helps these punch up. Throw them into the Oath of Moment target for that reroll hits and then +1 to the wound roll. Gladius helps this unit quite a bit though through the detachment rule and the stratagems. For the combat doctrines, the only doctrine that is not useful for this unit is the Devastator Doctrine. Advance and Shoot with bolt pistols and Adrax Flamer does not excite me that much. Advance and Charge, Fallback, Shoot and Charge are amazing for this unit though. Adrax loves his melee and either of those help him get into melee. We can use Adaptive Strategy for 1 CP to put his unit in any doctrine to have Adrax advancing and charging all game. Honor the Chapter for 1 CP, this stratagem can really help this unit out even more. Use it with the Assault Doctrine to give the unit an extra AP 1 and +1 to the wound roll in the fight phase. AP3 Adrax and AP3 Bladeguard can really threaten vehicle and monster units now. It helps the overall melee damage of the list. I don't want my list depending on Oath of Moment being the only way to take out tough units in combat. Honor the Chapter will allow me to get +1 to the wound roll into 2 different enemy units with that Oath of Moment and Honor the Chapter. Next up is Only in Death Does Duty End for 2 CP. This is a pricey stratagem, even more so when Adrax does not reduce the cost of stratagems. 2 CP could be worth it though. This is a fight on death without any roll, so chop them up before we die. If I only have 1 Bladeguard and Adrax left when I get charged, I may want to save the 2 CP. 3 to 6 Bladeguard left in the unit, it's time to chop. Next we have the Lieutenant with the Fire Discipline and 10 Hellblasters. I like this combo. The Lieutenant has 2 abilities that help the Hellblaster squad out. Target priority, where the model's unit is eligible to shoot and declare in a turn in which it fell back, so it makes it really hard to tie these up. Then tactical precision, while this model is leading a unit, weapons equipped by models in that unit have the lethal hits ability. A built-in fallback and charge will save CP on using adaptive strategy. Lethal hits on the Hellblasters is nice. How about sustain hits 1 as well? I put the Fire Discipline enhancement on the Lieutenant to give the Bearer's unit sustain hits 1. Now I have a 10 model unit of Hellblasters shooting 20 shots with sustain hits 1 and lethal hits. Let's take a quick look at the Hellblaster's weapons and how sustain hits 1 and lethal hits will really help this weapon profile. For the Hellblaster's range weapons, we're looking at the Plasma Incinerator, where we can shoot it in a standard mode or a supercharged mode. The standard mode has the Assault and Heavy keyword, 24-inch range, 2 shots, hitting on 3s, strength 7, AP 2, damage 1. Then if we supercharge / overcharge it, still has Assault and Heavy, but it now has Hazardous, 24-inch range, 2 attacks, hitting on 3s, strength 8, AP 3, damage 2. With Hazardous, that means after your model has shot, you have to roll a dice. For every 1 that you roll, you take some mortal wounds and it blows up your Hellblaster model. And these Hellblasters have one of the strangest ability for the chapter. Each time a model in this unit was destroyed, on a D6 on a 3+, do not remove it from play. The destroyed model can shoot after the attacking model's unit has finished making its attacks. When resolving these attacks, any hazardous tests taken for that attack are automatically passed. We do have a designer's note here. This ability is triggered even when a model in this unit is destroyed as a result of failing a hazardous test, meaning such a model is able to shoot twice in the same phase. So what you do, you overcharge these, you shoot into an enemy unit with sustained hits and lethal hits. You maybe even have Oath of Moment to reroll the hits as well. Then after that, you're going to roll 10 dice for the 10 models you have. For each 1 that we roll, we will lose that model, but then you get to roll a D6. On any 3+, you get to shoot that model again. That's why this ability is so strange, because there's not a lot of abilities in this game that allow you to blow yourself up and still shoot at the same time. The Hellblasters, not a bad profile to have sustained hits 1 or lethal hits on, but it can get even better. Storm of Fire for 1 CP. When we overcharge these will already be at a strong AP 3. Use this stratagem to have them ignoring cover. In the Devastator Doctrine, they will have an extra AP 1. So shoot all of this into the Oath of Moment target, so you'll have reroll hits, +1 to the wound roll from Oath of Moment, sustain hits 1 and lethal hits, ignore cover, and an extra AP 1. Overcharge this, that is strength 8, AP 4, damage 2. Squad Tactics for 1 CP. This and Armor of Content will be the Hellblaster's friend. These Hellblasters will be a high value target for the opponent. They will get a lot of hate throughout the game. Next is the Judiciar with the 6 Bladeguard veterans. Currently, as of May 2025, 6 Bladeguard cost 160 points. These 6 Bladeguard will gain all the same benefits of the Gladius rules without the reroll wounds that Adrax gives them. The Judiciar does give the unit fights first. A big deadly melee unit with fights first can be used to move block, charge block, or my favorite, heroically intervene into the enemy unit. And since this unit has fights first, we will get to fights first with this unit. We won't get that fights first charge from the charge bonus when you heroic intervene, since you don't get the charge bonus, and the charge bonus is the fights first. It's not any abilities that are procced off a charge. The charge bonus that they're talking about when you heroic intervene is the fights first ability. The Judiciar will give this unit fights first from his ability, so when we heroic intervene, our unit will have fights first. I did put the Honor Vehement enhancement on the Judiciar. He has a precision with devastating wounds melee weapon. that enhancement will give him +1 attack and strength. Then in the Assault Doctrine, that will go up to +2 attacks and +2 strength. Now I have a fights first unit that can take out enemy characters in melee. Let's move on to our Dreadnoughts now. We'll start with the Ballistus Dreadnought. We do have 2 of these in the list. Advance and shoot or fall back and shoot from the combat doctrines are great for these big Dreadnoughts with guns. The Ballistus is the cheapest of the new Dreadnoughts. I like having them lurking in my backlines, screening out enemy reserves, and taking out enemy monster and vehicle units. The Ballistus strike ability, each time this model makes a ranged attack that targets a unit that is not below half strength, you can re-roll the hit roll. This means we do not need to rely on over the moment to re-roll the hit rolls. For the stratagem, Storm of Fire, giving the Ballistus anti-tank profiles ignores cover with a possible AP1 can make a big difference in shooting units in cover. It takes these from doing a few wounds to a Land Raider to doing major damage. Armor of Content for 1 CP, all 4 Dreadnoughts in this list have a 2+ save. Armor of Content, along with cover, makes taking these things out awful. I speak from experience from shooting them with the Adeptus Custodes grav tanks. Those only have AP3, so when they're in cover, they use Armor of Content. They're going to have a 3-up save. They can be awful to take out. Next up is the Redempter Dreadnought. The Redemptor costs the most points of all these Primaris Dreadnoughts. The cost comes from the Duty Eternal ability. Duty Eternal, each time an attack is allocated to this model, subtract 1 from the damage of that attack. I decided to equip the Macro Heavy Plasma with the smaller Gatling gun on my Redemptor Dreadnought. I want to use this as a Bully Dreadnought along with my Brutalis Dreadnought. I won't go through all the melee and shooting stratagems that can be used on the melee and shooting attacks like our Brutalis and Ballistus. I will say that this Dreadnought can either be a mild nuisance for our opponent or something they have a really hard time dealing with. It all depends on the weapon profiles attacking it. High damage, high AP, these will still go down quite quickly, even with that -1 damage from Duty Eternal. Against low AP, damage 1 or damage 2 attacks, these can be a real nightmare to get rid of. The final Dreadnought in this list is the Brutalis Dreadnought. This Dreadnought isn't as tough as the Redemptor, it is more reliable in the combat phase though. No matter what weapon profile we equip it with, it has twin length so it will re-roll the wound roll in combat. I have mine equipped with the Brutalis Talon to have a strike or sweep profile. The strike is 6 attacks, hitting on 3s, strength 12, AP2, damage 2 with twin linked. Into the over the moment target, reroll hits with +1 to the wound roll. This thing can do some real damage. I also took the Twin Melta. Like the Brutalis melee weapon, the Twin Melta is twin linked. Reroll wounds everywhere with this Dreadnought. There are a surprising amount of stratagems that can be used on a melee Dreadnought in the Gladius Task Force. Only in death does duty end for 2 CP. Fantastic for a melee Dreadnought. Low on wounds, throw this Dreadnought in front of a high threat melee unit and dare them to come in. 2 CP is expensive though. There's no way to reduce it using the Salamanders in the Gladius Task Force. Armor of Content for 1 CP, even better on a big stompy melee Dreadnought. If the opponent is only using AP1 or AP2 melee weapons to try to charge in and kill this Dreadnought, Armor of Content can be backbreaking for the opponent. Adaptive strategy for 1 CP, take the combat doctrine to advance and charge is extra spicy. The same for fallback, shoot and charge, Melta shots to the face, and then cave in some skulls after we charge into melee combat. Storm of Fire for 1 CP, to buff some Melta shots and a few small arms fire is not worth the cost. The Brutalis does not have enough high volume or high quality shots for this stratagem. Finally, Honor the Chapter for 1 CP, another strong melee focused stratagem, lands on a strength 12 twin linked melee weapon. Using this during the Assault Doctrine takes the Brutalis Talon up to AP3. The normal AP2 is the downside of the Brutalis into 2+ save targets. Lands for +1 to the wound roll, AP3, twinned link with damage 3. There's a lot more anti-tank threat in that profile. There are a lot of great stratagems for the Brutalis and the Gladius Detachment. Into the over the moment target, these become even more deadly. Our final unit is our Infiltrator Squad. My humble home objective holder, the 12-inch Deny Reserves ability, is very helpful for this list. Other than the Ballistus Dreadnoughts, I want to be pushing my army forward. If I have to spend a few extra points so I don't have to turn any of my units around to defend my home objective, that's points well spent. I equipped the Helix Gauntlet on the unit for a 6+ Feel No Pain. It's not really a unit I want to spend CP on. Squad Tactics for that D6 or 6-inch reactive move, or possible Arm of Content could be used on this unit to help keep it alive. That's the unit breakdown. Let's move on to the game plan. Now let's go over the game plan for this list. As I start playing the Gladius more, I will expand on these game plans. Anytime I've played the Salamanders, I played using the Firestorm Assault Force. I want to nominate my expansion objective with Vulkan as stance, Seeker of the Unfound ability. Vulkan and his Infernus unit will hold and guard that objective all game if need be. I will start the Adrax and Bladeguard unit in reserves for a rapid ingress threat. There's no deep strike on that unit, but it is still something my opponent will have to worry about. Depending on the terrain in my opponent's army, I will either press towards the center with my Redempter and Brutalis Dreadnoughts. I usually don't try to put them on the center turn 1 if they risk taking a lot of damage in the following opponent's turn. If not the center, I will start moving some pressure towards my opponent's expansion objective. I will have the Judiciar with the Bladeguard unit staged close to the center objective, ready to charge or a fights first heroic intervention. The Infiltrator Squad will hold my home objective, while the Ballistus Dreadnoughts will stay in my deployment, taking shots into the enemy and screening my back lines. The 2 Intercessor units can be used for secondary and utility, while using their ability to sticky objectives to allow my army to keep pushing forward. There is a lot of good stratagems in this detachment. CP management will be important for this list. I have no CP reduction abilities in any of my units. I'm sorry if I missed anything. This was our first Salamanders Gladius video. There has not been a lot of change with these Space Marine units since the Space Marine Codex besides points. Until we get some real changes to the Salamanders, a new codex or detachment, I want to make some fun and interesting lists. Next week we'll have one of these strange but fun lists. Next Flamestorm Friday is the Melee Manders list. Subscribe for weekly battle reports, list videos, and other Warhammer 40K content. And like always, thanks for watching. Thanks for stopping by.